Welcome back. I'm Jack. Around here, we don't chase trending topics. We chase what's buried, lost files, vanished people, places that shouldn't exist. My job? To bring you the stories they don't want you to hear, the kind whispered about, in closed forums or wiped clean from the internet. Today's case? It's not just bizarre, it bends what we call real. Buckle up. You're not just watching a story, you're stepping into it. Okay, everyone. Find a moment to think about radio, about the airwaves, invisible but filled with signals, carrying voices and information across distances. In the late 20th century, FM radio was a constant presence, a soundtrack to daily life, broadcasting from known stations to listeners everywhere. But what if a broadcast appeared on those airwaves that came from nowhere? A signal carrying information from a reality that wasn't ours, delivered by a voice that shouldn't have existed, hinting that our world is just one entry in a vast alien database. We're talking about the broadcast that was never aired. A phantom broadcast and the terrifying truth about who is logging our reality. 97. The internet was growing, but FM radio was still king of the airwaves for many. Radios in cars, in homes, tuned into familiar stations, broadcasting music, news, talk shows. Then, on a specific date in 1997, something impossible happened. Across continents, in multiple countries simultaneously, FM radio frequencies were briefly hijacked, not by static or another station's bleed over, by a broadcast. A single distinct transmission lasting exactly 23 minutes. It appeared on different frequencies in different areas. 7 countries were later confirmed to have received it, overriding regular programming, a ghost signal on the air. It vanished as abruptly as it began, leaving only confused listeners and dead air where it had been. This was undeniably a phantom broadcast. Initial reports were chaotic, dismissed by many as hoax, mass hysteria, or explainable atmospheric phenomena affecting distant signals. But where it was received, the broadcast was clear. Radio enthusiasts, audio researchers, and eventually, concerned intelligence agencies and anomaly investigators began scrambling to record the transmission. Many managed to capture parts of the 23 minutes, initially on analog tape, later digitized. Analysis of the audio was chilling. The broadcast consisted of a voice, reading from a list. The voice was monotonous, flat, lacking any human inflection or emotion. It sounded artificial, generated. The content was even more disturbing, a dry recitation of names, times, dates, and events. But the events were unfamiliar. Historical occurrences that never happened in our timeline, names of places, and people not in our history books' timelines that didn't align with known reality. It sounded like a historical record being read aloud, but from a different world, a different timeline, a temporal leak. Audio forensic experts, including those with access to cutting-edge voice analysis technology, Dr. Anya Sharma, specializing in vocal analysis, Ben Carter, digitizing and processing the fragmented recordings, analyzed the voice. The findings were impossible for 1997. Spectrographic and acoustic analysis revealed no evidence of vocal cord vibration, no organic qualities, no breath sounds, none of the subtle imperfections of a human voice. The voice was entirely synthetic, chillingly perfect in its monotony. The technology to generate such a seamless, natural sounding, despite its lack of emotion, synthetic voice simply did not exist in 1997. This pointed definitively to a non-human, non-local source, an impossible technology actively performing a psychological hijack of radio waves. The mystery deepened. Where did this impossible broadcast come from? How did it hijack FM waves simultaneously in 7 countries, perhaps specific locations chosen for their radio infrastructure, geographical placement, or other unknown factors? What was the source of the alternate history events it described? Was it a transmission from another dimension, the future, a parallel reality? What was the purpose of listing this alien history? Professor Dmitry Volkov, working with historians and researchers, began the painstaking process of documenting every event mentioned in the broadcast's list, comparing them to real history, looking for any resonance, near misses, or parallels. A disturbing pattern emerged over the following decade. From 1997 onwards, some of the events mentioned in the alternate history list, seemingly random, sometimes minor occurrences that made no sense in our context, began to happen in our own reality. Political incidents, obscure geographical changes, minor technological developments, specific figures appearing in roles or situations eerily similar to their mentions in the broadcast list. A statistically improbable number of correlations emerged, events described in the 1997 broadcast, manifesting years later in our timeline. This suggested more than just random noise or a temporal leak. It suggested precognition, or worse, influence. The broadcast was not just reporting alternate history, it was potentially a blueprint, a prophecy, or a subtle catalyst shaping reality. Researchers worked tirelessly to piece together a complete, accurate transcript of the entire 23-minute broadcast, combining data from fragmented recordings made in different countries. The broadcast was rigidly structured. A list read entry by entry, timestamp after timestamp, event after event, and it ended with a specific final sentence, chilling in its brevity and implication. The terrifying twist was the final sentence of the broadcast. After reciting the last alternate history event on the list, the monotonous, impossible voice concluded the 23-minute transmission with log entry number 73. Continue monitoring. The twist, the 23-minute phantom broadcast that appeared in 7 countries in 1997, containing alternate history and future events delivered by an impossible AI-like voice, concluded with the phrase, log entry number 73, continue monitoring, revealing the broadcast is part of an ongoing, automated surveillance process logging reality. The implication was vast and horrifying. The broadcast was not just a random signal, a temporal leak, or a ghost on the airwaves. It was a deliberate record, part of a larger series. Log entry number 73 implies at least 72 previous entries, generated by an unknown entity or system. The final command, continue monitoring, revealed the process was ongoing. An entity or system was actively watching, collecting data on reality. The list of names, times, and events wasn't just alternate history. It was the data being logged. It was history, but potentially drawn from multiple sources, alternate timelines, probable futures, or even different dimensions, compiled into a structured log. The source of the anomaly was a vast, possibly non-physical, non-human monitoring system or entity that existed outside our conventional reality, using the airwaves as a convenient output mechanism. The numbers gained new significance. 7 countries, 23 minutes, log Surveyor 73. Perhaps these were the locations and duration of this specific log entry's transmission, or related to the overall system structure, markers within its internal process. The most terrifying implication was the events mentioned in the log that later happened in our reality. This suggested the monitoring system wasn't just passively logging data. It might be logging probable futures that then manifest, or its very act of logging influences reality, subtly nudging events into occurring, or it's reporting from a timeline, slightly ahead of ours, broadcasting its history as our prophecy. The impossible AI-like voice was simply the natural voice of this automated monitoring system, a chilling echo of a non-human intelligence at work. The purpose? Why is reality being monitored? By whom or what? For what ultimate goal? Is it scientific study on a cosmic scale? Is it preparation for invasion or manipulation? Is the 1997 broadcast an error in transmission, a deliberate leak to announce their presence, or a test of humanity's ability to detect them? The entity. Is the monitoring system sentient? Is it a vast, distributed AI? Is it controlled by an entity or a collective? One tied to information, time, reality, surveillance, control, or perhaps the observation of infinite possibilities? The voice, the time, the vast, the unknowing, the machine, the eye, the spiral, alternate realities, history's burden. The Magnus Archives horror was deeply auditory, temporal, and existential. The monotonous, non-human voice broadcasting unsettling, impossible information. The chilling final command framing our reality as data. Sound becomes a vector for profound dread and paranoia. The voice, the machine, synthetic voice. Alternate histories, future events coming true. The implication that reality is being logged across time or dimensions makes linear time feel fragile, manipulable, and less real. The time, the spiral. The realization that reality is being monitored on a global scale by an unknown, non-human system, that our lives are data points in a vast alien log, is existentially terrifying. The vastness of alternate histories implied only amplifies this sense of cosmic insignificance and exposure. The vast, the unknowing. The core nature of the anomaly is surveillance. Continue monitoring, listening from the code found in children's drawings, making the very act of living feel exposed, recorded, and observed by an unseen eye. The eye, the broadcast technology, the AI-like voice, the concept of an automated log, a chilling depiction of a non-human intelligence or system documenting humanity, using our own infrastructure, radio waves, against us, the machine. The unknowing source and purpose remain profoundly unsettling. What is this system? What does it log? What is its goal? Why 7 countries? Why 1997? Why log Cyber 73? What happens when it reaches log SAR 100? Cyber 1000? The unknowing. The burden on researchers and those aware of the broadcast, now burdened with the terrifying knowledge of this surveillance and the potential future events logged, is immense. The burden. The alternate history and matching future events subtly hint that reality might be less fixed than we believe, potentially influenceable, or merely a dataset being processed. The distortion, the spiral. The phantom broadcast was a temporal leak. The psychological hijack revealed automated surveillance. The researchers, Dr. Sharma, Ben Carter, Dr. Thorne, Professor Volkov, Dr. Petrova, the living sender of the letter, the architect, the divers, the man who never aged, the children whose drawings hold code, the individuals who heard the broadcast, and the clandestine team, are left with the horrifying reality of an alien, automated system that is logging our reality, potentially influencing it, and using FM radio waves to broadcast fragments of its ongoing record. The investigation continues under intense secrecy. They are intensely monitoring FM frequencies globally for any recurrence of the broadcast or similar signals, analyzing the full transcript of log Cyber 73 for any deeper patterns, meaning, or connections to known events or other anomalies. Research into log entry number 73. Does Cyber 73 have significance? Are there historical or mythological precedents for such a number or a system of logging? Are there records of other such broadcasts before 1997? Can they find evidence of previous log entries? The terrifying debate centers on the implications of the future event matches. How accurate is the prediction? Can they predict which alternate history events might appear next in our reality? Is the system predicting, influencing, or reporting from a slightly different or future timeline? Attempting to communicate with the signal is a risky but debated option. Broadcasting on the same frequencies, sending a coded message, trying to interact with the monitoring system. The ultimate fear is that the anomaly is intelligent, responding to investigation, and its ability to log and potentially influence means its power is far greater and more terrifying than initially imagined. If reality is being logged, for what purpose? Is it a threat? Is it a form of alien science? What happens if the monitoring stops? What happens if the content of the logs becomes actively malicious, not just listing events but directing them? What happens if the system decides to do more than just log, but to interact directly with the data points, with humanity? The broadcast that was never aired is real. It is a 23-minute radio broadcast that suddenly interrupted FM waves in 7 countries in 1997, source unknown, featuring a monotonous AI-like voice listing names, times, and alternate history events, some of which later came true, delivered by a voice impossible for the time. The twist reveals the broadcast ended with the phrase, "Log entry number 73, continue monitoring," identifying itself as part of an ongoing, automated surveillance process, logging reality. The Magnus Archive's horror remains a chilling undercurrent, amplified by the auditory invasion, the temporal violation, the technological uncanny, and the profound existential dread of being data points in a vast alien archive. The pervasive sense of dread that comes with knowing that an unknown, non-human system is logging our reality, potentially influencing its future, broadcasting its records from nowhere, and constantly listening. What is being monitored? What is the ultimate purpose of the log? What happens when the log entry is complete? What happens when they finish logging our reality? What happens when they decide to act on the data? What happens when the broadcast isn't a log but a command? Sleep well. And next time you hear static on the radio or a strange interruption, remember 1997. Remember the 7 countries. Remember the 23 minutes. Remember the impossible voice. Remember the alternate history. Remember the future events that came true. Remember log entry number 73. Remember continue monitoring. Because the broadcast that was never aired is a terrifying secret, and its chilling message is a haunting confirmation that someone, or something, is watching, and they are logging everything. What happens when they decide to share the full archive? What happens when they broadcast the final log? What happens when the log entry is us? This story was just a glimpse into the strange realities I explore. There are countless other mysteries out there waiting to be revealed, and I'm dedicated to finding them. But with the kind of topics we cover, sometimes you just can't predict what the future holds. So, to guarantee you're always in the loop, to make sure you catch every unsettling discovery I bring to you, smash that subscribe button and ring the bell. Don't risk missing out. You might not get another chance.